Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night with some brand new Star Trek Lower Decks to talk about, and I'm here with my friend Aaron. I'm pretty hyped to talk about some brand new Lower Decks. Aaron, how you doing this week?
I just came back from having a flu shot and a COVID booster, so I'm a little ow, get a
Yeah, so
little
this
out of it. But
this is gonna be an
but other than
interesting
that, I'm
show. Yeah.
yeah. Other than that, I've had a really good week.
Well, I see there's people already chatting in the audience, so let's
Yeah,
not keep them waiting. We can go ahead and get the show started. I'm Fathery.
I'm Aaron.
And before we get started with this joint presentation of Tex-Trek and Drawn to Trek, let's have a real quick root beer float break.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 263rd installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek old and new, and the 19th installment of Drawn to Trek, an animated Star Trek podcast and part of the Trek Geeks Network. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, Episode 7, A Few Badgeys More, written by Edgar Momplaisir. I think that's a first-time writing credit for Edgar, and directed by Lower Decks veteran Bob Suarez. Aaron, before we talk about this episode, we got a little bit of big news to talk about this week. I think we should just start with like the big
Oh
big
yeah,
celebratory one.
I'm like, wait, what big news? Like this week has gotten very long. It feels like that happened 3 weeks ago at this point. Yeah, uh, Star Trek Prodigy has found a home. It
Yes.
has landed on Netflix. The starship is landing at Netflix.
Well, that starship does land frequently, so.
Yes, that
Well,
one
it
actually
did.
makes sense. Yeah, well now it's
Does the Voyage can the Voyager A land? That's what we
Voyager could
maybe we'll
land.
find
So
out. Yeah.
I
So
would
maybe
think that
the
Voyager A could,
maybe.
hopefully.
I
We know
I would
that
love to
Voyager is sitting
see.
on
So
the at least at this point in lower decks, it's sitting on Earth in the Presidio. So it's not quite at Anthem Prime at the museum yet.
yeah. So I wonder, and since Prodigy is a couple years after Lower Decks, I wonder if
Yep.
it's still on Earth or not.
No, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably not. I think you would have seen it. Well, I don't know if we really would have seen it, but it feels like that was something that they would have pointed out.
Yeah, they would be like, "Hey, we can just—it's just like a block over here. Like we can just walk
Right.
down there, you know." So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I'm very, very happy to see Prodigy has found a home. People have been asking how is Tex-Trek going to cover that with, the Netflix distribution models. I am thinking it's extremely likely they'll drop the episodes in chunks.
I
I
hope.
would I would be shocked if they do some type of weekly release. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
Netflix would do that.
Well, at least if it's in chunks, at least it's not all at once. But yeah, that's going to be challenging.
Yeah,
I
I,
don't
I
know
don't
how we're
think
going
that.
to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the plan on with the Drawn to Trek side of things is going to
Yeah, I
be.
have to think about
It's
that
it's
because how do you review that like and know that other people have already seen? You got to have massive spoiler warnings and whatever you do because there are people who are not going to watch it probably as quickly as we do.
So what I think will happen. This is what I foreshadow based on my extremely limited knowledge. Just this is just my speculation.
Hmm.
But I think that they'll do 2 10-episode releases. So
Yeah, that
I
makes
think
sense.
I think that's most likely. They'll probably do one in the first half of the year and one in the second half of the year, since they're saying 2024. Um, so I don't maybe like a spring fall type thing. I don't know, something like that.
And then it
But
will take a break and go into season 2. Oh no, sorry. I'm trying to think of are they going to dump? I guess they'll drop all of season 1 at one
yeah,
time. Then
yeah,
the season 2. Yeah, sorry.
because that's pretty standard when Netflix acquires a
Yeah.
show. They'll put everything up, and then if they're buying new seasons, they always put that in like either a whole season or like half a season. The only time Netflix has ever done like weekly episode releases is if they have like a distribution contract with like an overseas show, or I think they were doing that a little bit with like USA a few years ago with like Burn Notice and some other USA shows, or it might have been a different show, but I don't know.
Oh,
Something
depending on
with,
what they do with Europe and different countries, maybe that will still do that. Maybe we'll get a chance to do it weekly. That would be interesting.
maybe, I mean, they're using Netflix for all the overseas releases as well, so I think it'll release the same
Okay.
everywhere. But I think that'll be good for, you know, the way that kids watch. They do like to binge.
True.
And that's something that when I talked to Kevin Hageman in Vegas, he said that was one of the things he felt was hurting the show. So
that it was weekly.
yeah, and that it was 5, and then they had to wait, and then 5 more, and then you had to wait a long time, and then 10 more.
Well,
and it's just like,
yeah, that was a weird that whole process did not make sense. But yeah, I think if it was consistently weekly, it might have been better. But yeah, I can see that that's not how people watch TV anymore.
But as far as Tex-Trek, if there's 10 episodes and there's no, you know, if Discovery and Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks are all like not coming out, then you know, like what I think we would probably want to do with Tex-Trek is to cover them in groups, but not all 10, maybe like do 5 one week and 5 the next week or something like that. But it would just depend on,
or just depending on what the content is, maybe group them by story beat or something like that.
Yeah, it'll really largely depend on what Discovery is doing, because I think that's going to be the wild card. And I would think that Paramount Plus and Netflix would probably be like, hey, we want people to, you know, stream the Star Trek show that's going to be on our platform. Maybe we shouldn't put it out while this other one is out. Just a thought. But we'll see what they do.
I'm just hoping that Netflix doesn't do what they do with a lot of shows where it's like, look at this amazing new show, and then they just disappear and don't ever talk about it again, and they don't advertise it or anything. So I feel like it's great that Star Trek Prodigy had this much buzz, and that hopefully that will continue into the actual show in season 2. Like at the end of season 2, we need to be as vigilant as we were when it was canceled, or not canceled, but deplatformed.
Yeah, yeah, everyone should make sure that you click play on. I currently don't have Netflix. I don't have a Netflix subscription, but I'll get one when the new episodes come out. But
I'm just gonna let it run, even if I don't watch it. I'll just turn on season 1, and
that's what I was doing with my dog has seen Star Trek Prodigy more than me, because I bought all the episodes on the Google Play Store when it got taken down from Paramount Plus, and I would hit play and let them run all day while I was at work in the office. And, you know, my dog was stuck at home listening to Jankum Pog and Murph and Rock Talk all day. So he's probably memorized every line of dialogue in season 1. But
that's funny. Yeah. So that's it. I'm very excited. And we, you know, like I think it was AV Geeks or somebody basically said that this goes to prove that airplane banners always work. So it was we really got like a lot of the stuff that was mentioned, like that campaign. You know, I donated a little bit, but I was the one who went and, you know, we stayed and took all the pictures and stuff like that, because without that, nobody would have seen it necessarily, and then it wouldn't have got the buzz. So I think it was a group effort, and the fact that it was like not incredibly cheap, but I mean it was like way cheaper than I thought it would have been. It was like $1,200 or something altogether. So I jokingly said, it's like there's going to be an article in 5 years, like how $1,200 saved Star Trek Prodigy or something like that.
But that's cool that our franchise has a tradition of, you know, fan activism, I guess. So, and speaking of that, we
thank B. Joe Trimble for that.
Yeah, she got the ball rolling on that tradition, and we've been doing a good job keeping it going. So, It is cool that we're getting like a lot of good news. And we got like the writers' strike ended. Like I guess like a little bit of bad news as we thought the actors' strike was
Yeah,
going to
that
end
doesn't
soon.
sound
It
really
looks like
good.
yeah. I think it'll still be resolved by the end of the month. I think cameras will be rolling again in November.
Hmm.
They did this with the writers. There were talks that started up and then they broke down for a little bit, and then a
Okay.
few weeks
Yeah.
later they resumed talks again. So um I think that it's just that they're going to have to cave on everything like they gave to the writers. So, which is
Yeah.
good. It's good that the Writers Guild was able to. It's interesting, Aaron. They had movement on like every issue, every concern that they addressed that they brought up to the MPAA. They got or the what are they called? The AMPT whatever.
Oh yeah.
But everything they gave, every issue they brought up to the studios, they got movement on. So
Yeah.
that's like the first time that's ever
I
happened.
was gonna say
So
it was yeah, when they said that I'm like, wow, that's surprising. And then you kind of wonder, it's like, is it really? And they're just kind of trying to like paint a better picture or whatever. And it's like, no, the writers wouldn't do that. They would just be like, they would say
well, there
how much
was
they
a
didn't like it.
I would I don't it's this is historical, I guess, so it doesn't really not really relevant. But I think a bit of that did happen with the 2007 strike. And not the case now.
Yeah.
But
Well, now it's a lot harder because you have everybody having a platform basically to talk about it. In 2007, yeah, there was social media, but not to this extent.
in 2007, I think you could make the debate on like how much did they win from that strike, and
Yeah.
here I think it's like even if you're like super skeptical against organized labor, it's like there's no way you would think that they would have gotten anywhere near this good of a deal without striking. So
Yeah.
and I think that having like the two unions striking at the same time is what
Yeah.
really made a big difference. So I still think we'll get cameras rolling in November. It'll just be a few more weeks before that's all resolved. But what won't be a few weeks
Fingers
away,
crossed.
what's right around the corner from tomorrow, day of recording, is the New York Comic Con Star Trek Universe panel.
Yes.
So if you're watching this live on Friday, tomorrow we'll be talking about that. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, will be live.
I think we can also talk about the IDW news from today as well, because there was
Mhm.
some Star Trek IDW stuff announced.
Yeah, a new comic series, a mini series called Sons of Star Trek, starring Jake Sisko, Nog, Alexander, and Q Junior, son of Q,
Yeah.
whatever his official name is. I'm sure it's one of those three.
Junior, they kept calling him. I remember that one time on Voyager. So maybe that'll be his moniker.
And people should keep eyes peeled for variant covers. I know some cover artists that work at IDW, so eyes peeled for those.
I'm not saying anything.
And in addition to covering the New York Comic Con panel tomorrow, which that might be, we know they're gonna show it next week's episode of Lower Decks. There's probably gonna be some type of trailers, clips. I don't know. I keep waiting for like more like Discovery season 5 stuff, a premiere date perhaps. Mike McMahon and Alex Kurtzman, since their unions aren't striking anymore, they're gonna be there. So cool. We'll probably hear something from Mike and Alex likes to make announcements. Kurtzman always shows up at a con when they're going to announce something. So we might get like a premiere date, maybe something about like the Academy show. Who knows? Section 31 movie stuff. We might learn something else about that movie.
And I'm sure there are people who are like, it's Legacy. They're going to say something about Legacy. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Don't think we're going to hear about Legacy. Just it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Stop trying to make Legacy happen.
There will be a Picard follow-up at some point.
Oh yeah, but... no, it won't be called that. I don't think so. Especially with Superman Legacy out. I don't think you want to like name something that similar.
Not if it's going to be 2025. Yeah, not if it's going to be that same year. But tomorrow we're also doing a celebration with our Patreons in the Tex-Trek Discord server. If anyone is a Tex-Trek Patreon supporter, first of all, thank you. We'll give you a shout out in the end credits at the end of the show. But second of all, if you're watching this live on Friday, then tomorrow on Saturday the 14th, That's right. It's Friday the 13th now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, Saturday the 14th, less exciting date. We'll do the Patreon watch party with Impulse, the zombie Vulcan episode from Star Trek Enterprise. So kind of a fun October Halloween scary episode with zombies.
Not scarier than the theme song, though.
That's the part I'm dreading.
Yeah.
But no, I do like that episode. Other than that, a really fun direction from David Livingston. You got to do like cool horror movie. I think that's who directed it. Got to do like some fun lighting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's Terry Matalas's first credit in Star Trek.
Ah.
Speaking of Legacy and Picard, so
there was a Voyager episode where they did an homage to Psycho, which was kind of interesting because they got to do that, like you said, change the lighting and do some interesting camera angles and all that.
Which episode?
It was the one with the find the hologram who murdered all of his crew, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me now.
I can't remember it, but it's
that
like
episode.
It's early season 4,
something like that. Yeah,
yeah. I love that actor.
Talking.
But I think that's it on housekeeping. I don't that video game came out, but I haven't talked to anyone who's played it, and I haven't played it, and I don't know. I kind of seems like everyone kind of like no one really cared, or if the game the strategy game on PC, Star Trek Infinity.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even remember what it's called. But yeah, Star Trek Infinite.
Revulsion was that other episode. I just remembered. Sorry.
Revulsion was
not the game.
Psycho Hologram.
Yeah.
The video game is
Infinite.
Star Trek Infinite. If anyone plays it, let me know. I'm curious.
Yeah.
If I should play it, tell me. I'm not typically a strategy gamer. I'm not typically a PC gamer, but I'll do it for Star Trek if someone tells me to.
With our show that's on pause, we should bring it back just for that. It's Infinite Trek. We can play Star Trek Infinite on Infinite
Trek.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Just bring it back as a Twitch channel and do a live stream of gameplay.
Yeah. Well, the idea behind it was that it's like it could be anything.
Yeah.
You know, you could talk about anything Star Trek related on that show. Unfortunately, when something can be about anything, it's sometimes often about nothing. So it got paused.
Well, the cool thing about the pause button is that it works both ways. So anything that can be paused can always be unpaused.
Very true.
But if that's it for housekeeping, Aaron, let's talk about some evil AI cartoon characters that have appeared in this latest episode of Star Trek.
Speaking of the strike,
yeah. So that whole like AI thing,
yeah.
But I feel like they kind of they realize like, oh, we have like these 3 evil AIs. Let's do something with this on our show. So I think that was a mission statement for season 4, and this is what they came up with. I'm gonna quickly recap the episode by reading the official synopsis, and I'll kind of expand on that with spoilers. The official synopsis reads: 3 computerized villains return to cause problems for the Cerritos crew. So yeah, basically Badgey takes over some Drukmani salvagers and tries to blow up the Cerritos. At the same time, Peanut Hamper makes parole and is freed from prison, but has a scheme with Agamus, but they end up actually like turning good, and turns out rehabilitation works. And then Badgey evolves into a space god and leaves the universe, I guess is what happened. That's an accurate description of the events of this episode. It just sounds weird to say out loud.
It sounds weird, but when you actually get into it, is like it was super predictable, at least for me. I don't know. It's like, no, not him, ascending to the heavens at the end. But even when it happens, like, oh, okay, if he does that, he's gonna not want to kill everybody. Like, okay,
well,
yep.
Elaborate on that, Aaron, and give us the first opening statement and say your kind of broad impressions on the episode before we get into the breakdown.
I liked it because I love the characters. Peanut Hamper, maybe not so much. I'm with Sean Farrick on that one. But
you've had a long stand. Well, what about in season 1? Was it hate at first sight?
No,
love
season
at first
1.
sight?
Okay. Season 1. It was like the
season
character
3.
was annoying, but it was supposed to be annoying. It was season 2 was sort of like, oh god, she has her own episode. Like why? And it was one of the. It was not only was her own episode. It was just like one of those. It was let's try to do something different. So it was like. It was just a little odd at the same time, but I did like parts of it. But yeah, no. So for me, it's like even the characters seemed to think that it was predictable. Like when they're leaving to go to the Daystrom Institute, and Mariner points out, it's like, this is totally not a trap. It's just like, so even they kind of saw that this was coming. So you could kind of put the pieces together as it went along. Maybe the whole thing wasn't, I wouldn't have guessed it if I hadn't watched it. But once it started, you're like, okay, here are all the pieces, and this is probably how it's going to fall together. And it kind of did. But it still was enjoyable. It's always fun to see Badgey. And having multiple Badgeys, which is actually something that when we were talking about this season, before it started, that Brandy had mentioned that she would like to see like a good Badgey.
Yes.
So
and drawn to Trek number 13, and I think that was Tex-Trek number 260. But people should go listen to it.
So yeah, but it was done well for what it was, and it was just, for me, it was just kind of a middle of the road episode, I guess. I don't know, which is weird because having those three characters together should have made it like a big thing, and it just felt like it was like just an episode on the road to whatever is going to happen at the end of the show. I mean, we now know that they are not part of the finale, unless Badgey, because he is in in all time periods at once, it could still be Badgey because. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. But
yeah,
no.
I guess at any point in the Star Trek universe and timeline, you can have Badgey show up now, and you can have a Vana Akot from Prodigy come through one of those time portals.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's a prequel, sequel, or what. So
yeah, Badgey can show up on Star Trek the Animated Series.
What's greater, Aaron? Your fondness of Badgey or your dislike of Peanut Hamper?
Oh,
or do they cancel out? Or are they equal?
Yeah, I think they cancel out. It's like,
okay,
I never really, I don't hate Peanut Hamper in herself. I don't want all Peanut Hamper. She needs something to bounce off of that is Starfleet or something. It was actually the first time she was on there, it was hilarious. The second time, it didn't feel quite as hilarious. Especially because like you're expecting, she's going to, of change and evolve, like that's the Star Trek message, and then she didn't. So I'm kind of glad that she did actually get that arc, or the completion of that arc, and that it wasn't. We didn't just end up with something that would have been like a very short Trek, where it's just like, screw you humans, and take off again.
Well, for me, like this episode, it was it did have that Star Trek, that moral of yeah, like in the long run, in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, it's what Dave said a long time ago in the early Tex-Trek days when we were first getting started, of the story of, at the end of the day, science and compassion wins when you value those things, when you value like knowledge and truth and information and learning, but also compassion and finding the ethical thing, the moral thing, the right thing to do there. And that's the secret recipe to victory, to success, to prosperity. But it doesn't always win. So I do like in season 3 when we saw Peanut Hamper as the villain. But I was okay with that, because I want Star Trek to be a place where the good guys win, but not all the time. Like, you still have like those defeats. We haven't quite perfected everything. However, with this being the follow-up to that, well, it does kind of add to, in the big picture though, eventually, even with something like Badgey, goodness does win out. So I didn't see the redemption at the end coming. I thought Peanut Hamper was still going to be a jerk at the end. So they caught me off guard here, and they caught me off guard when she was still evil previously. So both worked on me. I did see some predictability though with the Badgey stuff. My only problems with this episode kind of come towards, I guess, like the end of the Badgey plot, when like did we really need logic-y? I kind of get like Badgey and Goodgy. Okay, those are opposites. Those make sense. And then like logic-y, it's kind of like, it's like a hat on a hat type of thing.
I was even saying it would have been kind of fun that, like, if it was like Goodgy and Badgey, like, because it's like the com badge, like the pieces split apart. That would have been kind of funny joke to the who the heck makes those badges? What is wrong with me?
Fansets
used to be a sponsor.
And QMX.
Fansets, thank you. Yes, Fansets.
But outside of like the logic-y stuff, and then like Badgey turning into like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, and he's literally blue, and he's like, I'm gonna go to my own universe and create some new life forms there, and it's like, okay, that's literally like the ending of Watchmen. But outside of that, outside of that, I had a pretty good time. I do need T'Lyn back in a big way next week. This was Mike McMahon. You made me go 2 weeks with no T'Lyn, so I can't do 3 weeks.
But if you look at Logic-y, like Logic-y has the same expressions as T'Lyn. It's really funny. It's like if you just cropped out this, it's like it's not the eyes and just the if you watch it, it's really funny. I was like, oh wait, it's like T'Lyn as a badge.
Yeah, they use her emote animations on Badgey.
Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't notice that, but I'll keep an eye out for that from now on. But and we got some information on like the overarching mysterious threat. So
yes, which
some
it
movement
kind of does
there.
play out what we had all sort of guessed in somewhat form or fashion, that they weren't getting destroyed; they were actually getting something. They're getting stolen.
And I was the
digitized,
dum
whatever.
that never seemed right to me. Like that never. It still doesn't. It still seems like that's I don't know. I always felt like it looked like they were getting blown
Klingon
up.
ship, the very first one that we saw from the lower decks, we how do you pronounce it? Douche, that's not right.
Wage douche.
Thank you. This shot is driving me crazy. It was like pretty clear that it's like I just didn't feel like they would have killed that character off for like no reason. They would have just made it a different Klingon ship or something like that. So I'm like, okay, probably
like
not
that.
dead. So how?
I would have rather killed him off, and because that got me, and I was like, oh my god, I loved that guy. I hate that he's dead. I'm invested in this story with this mysterious ship. I care about this stuff now.
I said the same thing to Mike about Shax. Like, I'm like, hey, dude, like you should have left him dead. You've lost all the emotional impact that you garnered when you killed him off. But that's Star Trek, or at least lower decks. So Star Trek. You come back.
I can give a pass on the Shax one because I did think that joke was funny. So I don't know if this does build up to a punchline that makes me laugh. I can forgive a whole hell of a lot. But right now I feel like I would have been more excited if this was something that was actually like killing them. But I know that is like a bit dark for lower decks, so they tend to not go that death tends to be kind of rare in lower decks, but it does happen sometimes.
And the interesting thing is, like, although this episode felt predictable when it happened, I now have no idea what's going to happen with the larger arc, because it's like those possible pieces of Badgey and Peanut Hamper and Agamas do not have anything to do with it now. Yeah. So that will be like, oh, okay, what is going on?
I was saying from the very beginning, I didn't think it was them because they said there was a life form on the ship. So
right. Yeah, that's true.
I still think it's either
or the whale probe people.
I don't think it's going to be the whale probe.
No, I know. It was just funny though.
But I think it might be Section 31 Boimler, or it might be the salamander catfish from Threshold. Just because Mike McMahon said that you are going to see the baby again. I don't know if he's talking about the animatronic babies in Tuvix. That's probably what he was talking about, but who knows? Maybe it's the Threshold baby is flying the ship. Just putting it out there as a possibility in case it turns out to be true. I don't think it will be, but who knows?
So if it was Section 31 Boimler, what is the point
studying threats to the Federation? They're mainly going after the Bynarr were the first Federation target that they hit. So it's been other people that they've mainly been going after.
But I mean, we know about Klingons and Orion.
That's true.
Like, it's not like in Romulans maybe, but like it does feel very like, classic bad guys, which they should have a lot of intel on. But I'm curious. Like,
we'll see.
It would be cool to have seen like a Drachmani ship, like instead of this, but like being destroyed or something that they came up with in, Of course, we also it could be we could have the Packleds come back, and they could be gluing together a giant Packled ship with all of these parts and things, which would be annoying, but possible.
It could easily be a Packled on that ship, yeah.
Or the Breen somehow.
Packleds would be more interesting to me since they were kind of like the show's like OG big bad.
Right. It did. Oh yeah, Jill said didn't they grab some Vulcans too? It's like, yes, they did. I think.
Not that
Did
we've
they?
seen. No.
No.
It was Klingons, Romulans, Orions, Ferengi, and now
The Vulcans that
Bynor.
we saw were in this episode where they were getting overtaken by the Badgey glow of him taking over everything. That's
Yeah.
where we saw some Vulcans.
Yeah. So speaking of that, let's get into the episode breakdown. Just starting
Yeah.
off with the beginning with the Badgey's, I guess, assimilation of the Drukmani captain, who I
It
assume
felt
this
very
is the same.
Borg-like.
This is the same Drukmani captain we've been seeing all along. He's got like the scar on his eye, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
He's typically voiced by J.G. Hertzler, who played Martok, and here they got someone different to do the voice, but he sounds like he's trying to copy that J.G. Hertzler voice.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is the J.G. Hertzler guy dead, or is it a different guy dead? But I think it's the same guy because he has the same scar on his eye.
Yeah, unless that's a thing that they do.
When you become a captain, you scar you. I mean, it could. We don't know jack shit
Well, it doesn't
about these
necessarily.
people. So,
But is it a scar or is it just some sort of like
oh, it could be a tattoo. Yeah,
tattoo or coloring or something? Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, like that'd be like a cultural thing. Like in their tribal days in the ancient times, like the leader of the hunting party would put war paint on his eye.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes sense.
Well, they did
like
that
a
in
captain would do
Voyager
that.
with the predators, whatever the hell their name are.
That was
Why I
another
can't remember
season
anything.
4. I got that one. That's Nemesis. So
No, but I'm trying to remember the alien's name.
that I can't help you with. But there's I like that episode. That was a good one.
And then they did the holodeck.
Raises some questions about the universal translator, but still fun to watch.
Oh,
But,
Hirogen. Jill was that's it.
No, not the.
That's
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
talking. Yes.
You're talking about a different. Okay, I was talking about like
Yeah.
the guys who physically looked like Predator, with like the mouth, but they were the Chakotay was hanging out with in that episode Nemesis.
Okay. I don't remember. I would have to go back and look.
But they were kind of similar to the Hirogen, who also, man, season 4 of Voyager is coming up a lot. But because Badgey took over the Drukmani ship, he was able to witness the Bynor destruction. So I guess this is the first time we've seen kind of the overarching threat tie into the main story of an episode this prominently. Normally it's like, oh, it's an Orion episode and there's some Orions got blowed up, or oh, it's a Ferengi episode, some Ferengi got blowed up. Here, like the Bynor destruction thing, it actually like becomes part of the trap that Badgey sets for the Cerritos.
Yeah, they mention it more than once. I did like when he got the assimilated with the thing where Badgey's like, would you like to know some Starfleet secrets? It's like, I certainly haven't killed anybody. Just the really on the nose sort of answers to all of his questions.
If you're this Drukmani salvage guy, you got to think like, oh, whenever I come across Federation technology, it's always like super, user friendly and incredibly advanced. And so, of course,
they were taking old Federation technology. The first time we saw them, they're getting the cargo ship from Star Trek, from animated series.
From the animated series, yeah, they're going after the robot ships.
That's where they threw the ship at the Cerritos, not unlike the ship being thrown at the Titan in Picard season 3. Like literally the same color beam and the same angle and everything, which is kind of hilarious. And yes, I agree with Joel. Their tomatoes did look delicious. Agamus and anyway, I will be quiet now.
What do you think of seeing the grappler in action? We have some Star Trek Enterprise grappler love.
That there needs to be some OSHA control in this. It's like that doesn't make sense. They would not have somebody just hold the apple. Like no, but it's funny. I did like how they got Tendi up there, but you can tell that it's like just her uniform that's holding it up. So it's a really interesting way that they did that.
I think it's interesting that this kind of it shows that they are aware of like the thing that they were doing on Strange New Worlds with like the grappler thing. Like they were, I'm sure when they were like writing this, like there was like some awareness of like, oh, but they're gonna mention grapplers and like the crossover on the other show. So I kind of like that synchronicity there. It's subtle, but like if And it's something like 20 years from now, like no one will care about. If you're watching Star Trek 20 years from now,
Yeah.
like no one's gonna be like, oh, both these episodes came out in 2023. How
Right.
crazy.
That's
But
true.
for us here in like the heat of the moment, as
Yeah.
it's all new and fresh, it's kind of cool to witness it. So
It's kind of like when we had Trouble with Tribble, or no, Trials and Tribulations, and then the Voyager episode with Sulu, and it was like, oh, that was all
Flashback,
happening around
yeah.
that time for flashback, yeah, for the anniversary.
Yeah, and then we had a movie come out a couple months later in
That's
November
true.
with First Contact. Yeah, you've like the 30th anniversary felt huge.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say
More than the 50th.
the 30th felt like the biggest ever of my lifetime. I mean,
Yeah.
I wasn't around for the Star Trek was already 20 years old when I was born, but since then I know the 30th was the biggest.
Yeah, and the 50th just was something happened. I think it needed help.
Yeah, I mean the only thing we had was one movie, so it was
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, and it wasn't even the prime timeline, and they didn't really do anything online. There was not Star Trek Day, I guess, at that point. So
right. If the 50th happened now, it would be crazy,
it'd be huge. Yeah.
Well, there's always the 60th, so just throwing that out there. 3 years away.
I wonder why they're putting a grappler on the shuttle. I wonder if they're just playing around with technology, or
I think they're just playing around. It could show up again at some point in the future. It could be a Chekhov's grappler, but I think it was just a gag.
And Chekhov's grappler.
Yeah.
I like that.
Pavel Chekhov's grappler.
Yeah.
Or we'll say Federation President Anton Chekhov's grappler. This is where we split the party, though. We get that briefing scene in the Cerritos briefing room, and Ransom says, Boimler, Agamus wants to talk to you. Freeman says, Tindy, go check on Peanut Hamper's parole hearing, and then we're going to go investigate the destruction of this Binar ship. So
because like in all Star Trek, they are the closest ship to what's happening.
I mean, that is how it works. So, but yeah. I like how they use that as a gag here. Like, they're finally giving us some important work. Like, no, we just happen to be the closest. Like, this is Star Trek. That's how work is assigned.
And Mariner's like, yeah, I'll take it.
But let's talk about like the Badgey stuff up until like his big like a warp 9.9 flight, and then we can do like the Daystrom stuff later. But as far as like Badgey's trap, what do you think when the Cerritos arrives at that nebula and is being attacked by the Drukmani ship under Badgey's command?
I like that the Drukmani tried to warn them at least. Or something that
the
was
Demon Triangle.
Yeah, that was great. And then, oops, he's dead. We assume that he died. But yeah, I like that. And the close-ups and stuff, the creepiness that they did on they did a great job with making Badgey seem like terrifying.
You know what it reminded me of, Aaron? It gave me like nostalgia for like early 90s Nickelodeon, like Ren and Stimpy or something.
Stimpy.
Like
yep.
When it would do like the close-ups and they would show you like the grossest like detailed stuff. I would be this little kid watching like this nice cartoon, and then it would like do like this weird close-up and just like freak me out and be like, oh my god, that's gonna give me nightmares. But it was that happened with Badgey.
I would be surprised if somebody hadn't mentioned internally when they were doing this Ren and Stimpy or something like that, because it feels very much like that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, all these animators, they grew up watching the same stuff as the rest of us. So yeah, I'm sure that was.
He has gums even. I just noticed that.
Yeah, like mouths and teeth and tongues and eyes and like the veins and eyes. Like when you put like those organic details on a weird object like a Starfleet Delta and then try to realize it in a more realistic visual depiction, you get some very disturbing images.
If we were having this conversation like 10 years ago, I'd be like, wait, there's a talking Starfleet badge? What? Like,
yeah, if we could,
I don't want to see the future. That sounds awful.
if we could send these podcasts back in time and let ourselves 10 years ago listen, it would be like, 10 years ago, Star Trek Into Darkness was coming out, and we would just be like, it's going to get so much weirder. Like, I thought Benedict, imagine this, I thought Benedict Cumberbatch playing Khan was weird.
Yeah.
You thought White Khan was weird? Wait till you see a Starfleet Delta murder people.
Or the orgy scene.
Or the orgy scene, yeah.
It wasn't a scene, it was just a bit. I really actually enjoyed that last very short trek.
Yeah, that one was good. I liked it too. I liked when Rutherford like disobeys orders to go, kind of take action, and I thought that's a very Star Trek thing to do.
And it's also kind of a callback to the very first scene where it's like a little on the nose, but it's just like, he never gives up. Like he just keeps trying until he solves the problem.
And we've talked how they've paired the characters this season, how they've we've gotten less Boimler and Mariner together, and I do I would kind of like to see them have a big story together, a big mission together. Maybe we'll get that in the last 3 episodes, but I did kind of like Mariner and Rutherford because they don't. I just like they get along really well, but it's like they just
Yeah.
work together well.
I would like to see them in like more paired off like that every once in a while.
Yeah,
That
like
seems
they
cool.
almost like they work together too well. Like they don't like there's not like enough like sparks or friction
Yeah.
there for like more interesting dialogue, but it's just like here it was where like Rutherford like needed like just like a supportive friend. And I also enjoyed she tries to kick Badgey because she said 2 weeks ago like how she prefers problems that you can solve by a roundhouse kick or something like that. Remember when she's telling Talin
Oh
about
yeah,
like
that's right.
kicking your problems? So
yeah, exactly. This is a problem that I just can't kick, or we can't. Yeah, I like the digital like glitchy effect when she goes through it.
yeah, like typically like Star Trek holograms are solid for some reason. Like you can't pass through them except for like when like the Doctor on
They want
Voyager, he
to
could
do.
do that. Like
Yeah.
he could like weaken his integrity field or whatever to like make things pass through.
And they
What
have
was the
hollow emitters all over the ship, which is because they was like, hey, how did you get out of the holodeck?
Yes, so I mean, it would be it would have been an easy thing for us to headcanon explain away anyways, but why not just toss one line of dialogue in there? There you go. It takes like 3-4 seconds. It makes sense that the characters would ask.
Well, and there's some cool things about. I don't know if you're going to do it in the Gorn eggs or not. The hollow emitters.
No, what's going on with them?
Oh, if you look at them, they are vaguely the Doctor's badge shape.
Oh, okay.
Or not badge, but the Doctor's mobile emitter shape.
Yeah, it's kind of
just larger.
Kind of a triangle, kind of a triangle with a flat top.
Yeah. So I thought it was kind of interesting. It's almost like they started to reverse engineering that to eventually create it in the future. I don't know. That one still bothers me.
That lines up with Picard though, if they're reverse engineering.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess let's get into like Goodgy and Logicy when we start getting the multiple Badgeys, which I guess this episode is named after. But yeah, it starts when Rutherford hugs Badgey, and I guess like part of Badgey liked his father showing love and affection, and so that started this internal conflict in Badgey, and we get Badgey and Goodgy,
which doesn't feel at all like Data and Lore, or
this
even
is fun, though.
Good Rutherford and bad Rutherford.
But this is the first time in Star Trek with one of those like the good alter ego, the bad alter ego, or I guess like the good opposite and the bad opposite, that we were introduced to the bad opposite first.
That's true.
This would be like discovering that Gul Dukat has a good twin instead of an evil twin. He has a good twin.
That would be weird. And you would definitely wonder if he was really not good, and which is kind of what happens here too. It's like I still don't trust the.
I'm more naive and trusting than the rest of you because I'm not freaked out by Goodgy. I know he made like the freaky face, but
not me.
At the end,
I meant the characters inside at the end. We could get to.
that, yeah. But I did see during the first reaction stream last night. If people don't know, on Tex-Trek we do a first reaction stream live on Thursdays on the YouTube channel, and I think Rachel and someone else was saying that they wouldn't trust Goodgy. So it's like, I mean, he makes a scary face when he's like buffering, but other than that, he seems nice to me. I trust him. He's made out of like
waiting
goodness
for the buffering
code.
badge from fan sets. I want that one where it's just like loading.
They do a good job of like just making Goodgy just like kind of like stupidly good, where he's just like, oh no.
Did you notice his oh no mouth is also a Delta badge?
I didn't, but that's funny. Offering root beer floats and stuff, and just I don't know. He's
or when they could jump to warp, it's like, look at the pretty lights.
I like that he's silver because like their comm badges are so. Oh, he looks like a lower decks comm badge. Like people listening can't see, but like I wear one on my shirt sometimes when we're talking about the show. I guess because first place is gold and second place is silver and third is bronze. So that's why. Is that why Badgey is gold because he's first, and then Goodgy is silver, and then Logicy is a bronze color?
Maybe. That's interesting.
Because it's interesting. I guess it's like kind of stupid, but it kind of makes sense at the same time. Like I don't know if I like it or hate it.
I still would have done something where it's like he's the gold front, Logicy or Badgey or Goodgy is the back, and then the internal like having like electronics on him or something. That would have been Logicy. I would have made it like a combat literally split in three.
Oh, he'd be the logic board.
Right. But that's just me.
I don't. When I saw Badgey, I was like, okay, I get it. I'm sorry. When I saw Goodgy, I was like, okay, I get it. There's Badgey, there's Goodgy. Oh, Goodgy. That's actually hilarious. That they put good in there instead of like bad is in there because it was like Badgey, like a badge. Okay, ha ha ha. That's all funny. But then Logicy, I'm like, oh, Logicy. So then are we gonna get like every like characteristic?
Emotion.
Gonna,
yeah,
exactly. But it was just odd to like do Goodgy, Badgey, and Logicy. I mean, even that I think would have kind of made a bit more sense than this. It's just like, what was the point? The only thing I can think of, and like, why did you like remove logic too, is just so at the end they could be like, okay, not only has he purged all of his goodness, he's also purged all of his logic, so he's just totally evil and totally insane, and still is able to like turn good in the end. I guess.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, otherwise, Logicy is just, it kind of just gives Badgey something to. There's like, oh, we'll just invent Logicy, and Logicy will fight Badgey for a little bit while we cut back to Agamus and Peanut Hamper, and then cut back. It's like, is that all it was for? It was just to like kill some time? Because if that's true, I'm a little disappointed.
It is weird that there are so many threads running through this episode, and it does feel like they are kind of killing time at times. Like you have only 26 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's slightly longer than a regular episode, I noticed, but not by much. Like 4 minutes, I think.
But yeah, basically Badgey's plan at that point, when he's purged his goodness, when he's purged his logic, he decides, Neurazine gas on the Cerritos wasn't enough. He now wants to kill the entire Federation.
Doesn't Neurazine knock you out, not kill you? Because that's what they did to, speaking of another Voyager episode, when they knocked out the Romulans on the whatever the ship was, the one that splits in three. Speaking of splitting in three.
The Prometheus.
The Prometheus,
yet another Voyager season 4 episode message in a bottle.
Aaron, what is going on?
Did you just watch Voyager season 4?
No, I did not. That is weird. No, but they had Neurazine gas. That's what knocked out the Romulans. It didn't kill them.
I'm glad you bring that up, though. That is actually something that I was trying to figure out last night, and I'll talk about it in the Gorneg section.
Oh, okay.
But, there's an interesting way to interpret that. Actually, we might have multiple interpretations.
All right.
But yeah, I don't know. You have anything else on like the logic-y, Goodgy, like all that stuff?
No, I mean,
we switch over to Peanut Hamper.
It was fun. It was predictable, but it was good. I mean, like, logic was probably not necessary, but it didn't hurt when it added it too much, I don't think. And we got a T'Lyn looking badge, so that was kind of fun.
And he definitely, like, the voice acting and the animation, everything. You do always feel the menace and the danger and the tension when Badgey's around.
Well, and when they're split, they all feel like 3 separate characters, even though you have a very short period of time. But it's like they at least don't feel like they're just slightly altered.
Yeah, really, really good voice acting performance.
Yep.
So I guess the B story, the Daystrom stuff. Tindy and Boimler go check on Peanut Hamper and Agamus, and we see the evil robots having a group therapy and playing basketball and gardening. And Peanut Hamper and Agamus, they've developed a friendship. I think it's fair to say possibly more than a friendship, but definitely like a deep emotional bond and connection. They seem to like genuinely have feelings for each other. But if you rewatch the episode, the scene plays different because here they're kind of phoning in the evil because they think that's what the other one wants to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree that it does feel like that. In fact, Peanut Hamper actually does seem to be enjoying herself gardening, even though you're supposed to believe that she's not. But it's like, okay, yeah, she actually does seem to be having a good time.
And even Agamus, when he like replicates the drones that water her tomatoes, he's like giving like the evil laugh, like he's enjoying watering tomatoes.
Yeah, what is it? Eat hydration plants or whatever.
It's weird to me that they make such a point in saying like totes ridic. Like,
yeah.
we get it, modern Star Trek. You love putting contemporary dialogue into the 24th century, but it's really weird for a lot of us. Like, do you have to rub our faces in it?
Yeah, that's gonna sound very like that. That's the one thing about older Star Trek that holds up over time more because they didn't do that. I'm gonna be curious to see what this is like 20 years from now.
But even older Star Trek would do it occasionally. Like, I
Occasionally.
think in Miri, when Kirk is talking about like dipping like little girls' curls into bottles of
that's
ink.
true.
And I'm thinking like, man, would a kid in the 1960s even know what the hell that meant? Like, a kid in the 1960s would be like, I have like a normal like ink pen at school. You know, I write with like a
in the
pen and
2360s, nobody's gonna know what that is.
It's like this is the 1960s. We're like going to the moon and stuff. It's not like inkwell stuff. Like,
yeah. Or they were trying to invent their own slang, like, Herbert and, she was Nova and stuff like that.
Man,
that doesn't work out either.
I'm going to bring Nova back. Like,
yeah.
Been talking to this gal lately, Erin. She's a real Nova, that one. We're going to make that a thing in the future. But I think it's funny that they're watching Lassie. Speaking of like old things that are still existing in the future, like they're still watching Lassie. I feel like Lassie was like on TV all the time when I was a little kid, and I never watched it on purpose, but I watched Lassie a lot.
They even had movies, I believe, didn't they? Wasn't there like a mid 90s or early 90s Lassie movie or something like that? I feel
there was, and they kept trying to like reboot it.
Yeah,
and I don't know. It's like I watched like old like black and white Lassie, and then there's like the new Lassie that was in color, and then this is Lassie all over the place. But I see in the live audience, people
1994
seem to be fans.
Was Lassie.
And that's the one.
But and when you get to the Gornags, I'll bring up something and say why I think it isn't.
Okay, I know what you're talking about, but yeah. What do you think of like when we get the conversation between Boimler and Agamus, where it's I don't know, it's like the interrogation scene thing?
I love the blue and red light thing because that is just such a sci-fi trope. Blue is good, red is bad. That was great. It's funny because it did feel like they both understood each other. It just felt very much like this is kind of where I was just like, oh, even the characters know what's going on. It's like Boimler's just like, okay, sure. It played off as funny, but yeah.
We both have seen 1,000 procedurals that have these interrogation room scenes. Like, okay, you know this plot beat. Come on, let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, which I'm glad they didn't drag it out, which is good. But yeah,
and I like seeing. I'm glad that Tindy was along for the ride on this one because it just like you got to see her like play with the sand, for example, or got to.
She had her like little squee moment. It was fun.
The whole like Agamus like being like this world conquering thing, but like he turns out to be just kind of he's actually like not that big of a deal with Starfleet around. Like I assume like there was no like death or murder on Plymeria.
Probably not. And it was only like if it was an hour or something like that, or however short period of time it was. I think when Boimler said it's like this isn't something that Starfleet could reverse in an hour, probably means it is something Starfleet could reverse in an hour. I think he was being facetious. It was just came off a little weird. No, I honestly thought that Tendi taking some sand back into the shuttle was going to at some point play a role. Like, oh, she has this sand, but no, it didn't.
That's a recurring thing. Her relationship with sand. Yeah. But I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry.
Well, Agamus in season 2, he seemed like such a just like, having this guy around, even though he's just like this little box, but he can talk to you. And this guy is like so evil and so manipulative and so conniving that just like this guy just talking can do great harm. And he's like an incredible threat to Mariner and Boimler. And we got to really, be on the lookout for what's going to happen. And I really love like that tension and that paranoia and stuff. That was in Where Pleasant Fountains Lie, I believe, in season 2. But then here, season 4 Agamus, he's kind of like a pushover.
Yeah, I've noticed that was there's a big difference between his dialogue in both of those. It almost feels like they also don't really, they're not as worried as they were before. You know, it's like
Yeah, so I
they
think it
know
kind
his
of like
tricks.
it undercuts his menace. I guess that's a good way to relens it, though. It's like, well, now that Starfleet is aware of this dude,
Right.
he was once a big deal. Now that they know his number, he's nothing. Okay, yeah,
Well,
I
the
can I
good thing
can
is
roll
that
with
it
that.
undercuts his menace, but that also makes the ending more believable. Like, he
Yes,
didn't go from like, oh, you think he's going to be evil and then he's not. Like that kind of a jump would be weird. This actually felt like a journey that you could see him taking.
I thought it was interesting that he just wanted to he just wanted to like go hang out with Peanut Hamper. He actually like didn't care about the conquest or anything.
Yeah.
And at this point in the episode, I was still thinking that Peanut Hamper is going to do something evil. So what I was actually hoping for at this point was that like I was hoping that she wouldn't betray Agnes. I was hoping that they would be kind of like the robotic Bonnie and Clyde by the end of the episode. I thought that would be interesting to see that
Yeah.
in Star Trek. Is like, what if we had like these two like nasty bad guys, but they were actually like in like a romantic relationship, kind of like a Spike and Drusilla in season 2 of
Oh
Buffy
yeah.
back in the day.
That would
But I
work.
guess we're getting that in Disco season 5 with the new characters they've been teasing. So
Ah.
we'll find out next year, I guess, if that works or not. Uh, but yeah, instead we find out like, oh, Peanut Hamper actually did want to be a good little exocomp. So is
Yeah,
Peanut Hamper redeemed in your eyes, Aaron, or are you still annoyed
I
with
mean,
her?
she's fine. I mean, just the I would, if I'd be curious to see if she comes back, what it would be like. Like if she is honestly like, back to being, or not back to being, but actually being more responsible and, an actual regular Starfleet officer, it would be really interesting to put her in a position where maybe she's dealing with somebody who is very much like herself or something like that, just to see how that's that pairing would work. But I don't know. I don't know how you'd bring her back now.
I would be interested in seeing her again, but only if I'm seeing Agamus also. I'd be more interested
Yeah.
in what their future, like I want to see Agamus like get out of prison or rehabilitation or whatever whatever you want to call the Daystrom Institute. Um but I do want to see him like complete that journey and be reunited with Peanut Hamper.
I could see something where they come together and like the Cerritos is there because they've created a new life form or something like that together. Something that they've done, like a
They have
project.
they have babies, they make a offspring.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Except they don't have
Uh
to be more than just friends at that point then or something. But I'm just thinking like just something where they work together and it's something that's supposed to be positive for the Federation, but kind of spins out of control.
I guess I would actually go as far to say I'm a Agamus Peanut Hamper shipper. I want to see them. I want to see them in a. I want to see. This is so ridiculous to say this shit out loud, but I want to see
I
a
want to see this
romantic.
at 19 like 20 early 2000s PC computer and this floating craftsman tool basically.
So you remember that episode, quality of life, Next
Yeah.
Generation, introduced the exocomps. It's crazy to say this out loud. I want to see one of those exocomps from that episode. There's one of those that's named Peanut Hamper, and I want to see it get involved in a romantic relationship with an evil computer named Agamus, who's voiced by Jeffrey Combs.
See, no, all this sounds ridiculous unless you actually have experienced it. It's still ridiculous, honestly, but it actually works. It's
It
very
does
strange
work.
that this is more Star Trek-y than a lot of other Star Trek, but it sounds like it wouldn't be.
Yes, but in execution, it feels like
Yeah,
Star Trek 110%. And I
yeah.
think they're even paralleling. I might be just seeing what I want to see with like because I'm also a Tindy and Rutherford shipper. Hashtag Team Tinderford or whatever. But I do want to see them get in a relationship, and I think that what they're doing here with Agamus being like kind of denying it and being like, "Oh no, sir, we're just friends," and
Yeah.
so I think they're trying to match that up with like the Tindy Rutherford thing, but in the end, like they will like be in love and be together romantically. Because even like in this episode, I feel like after their time with the Ferengi honeymoon, I feel like they're a little different. Like Rutherford's he's like really
Mm.
protective of Tindy when like the grappler like slams her against the wall, he like freaks
Yeah.
out. He's like, "Oh no, I could have hurt you!" And uh, it's I think they're still gonna do something with that, but
Yeah, I can see that.
what
I
else you
like the
got on
set
the?
too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we get to go back to Tyrus 7A.
Yeah, is this the same? Is it the particle fountain station? Are we in that
Yeah,
essentially? Or
it's the
okay,
same room. Uh, I guess that's all I have on the Daystrom stuff. I guess. What do you think of
yeah.
Peanut Hamper's dad, Kevin? Just
I just like that we have Bert, like is Tendy's
oh yeah,
dad. Just like we have these plain human sounding names as alien names. I thought that was pretty funny. Kevin talks in like uh 1980s Star Trek Next Generation
sound effects.
LCARS sound effects. Like that's
Yeah,
kind of weird.
yeah.
Like I
Someone went
don't
to the soundboard on TrekCore.com
exactly
when they were making this episode and be like, "Here we go."
Yeah, I would have changed that personally, but I do like it as fun.
Well,
He
Jill
seems
47
I'm
in
curious
the
to see
live
what
audience
their
says,
family dynamic would be. Kevin's name is mathematically
Jill
perfect.
says Kevin's name is mathematically perfect, so just like Peanut Hamper, I guess. I have one last thing, I guess, to add on the Agamus and Peanut Hamper plot line, but a lot of people talk about the Daystrom Institute like, oh, it's kind of weird that, Daystrom like went crazy and designed this evil computer and they still named the Daystrom Institute after him. But I choose to believe that sometime after the Ultimate Computer in the original series episode, that Daystrom did go to Richard Daystrom, right? Wasn't his first name Richard, I
Yeah.
think? But I believe he went to some form of rehabilitation and they rehabilitated him and he became a functional member of society again after that and went on to continue to have a great career in science, and they named the Daystrom Institute after him after he passed away. And wouldn't that be like a great continuation of his legacy if now like we saw like rehabilitation with just like this weird thing I made up in my own personal headcanon, but it's cool to see that kind of echo into Peanut Hamper and Agamis's storyline from the Daystrom Institute. I don't know. I thought it was a cool
With
possible connection.
this is not alpha canon, this is beta canon with inside the RPG where I worked on, but we had him Richard Daystrom was the one who built the bridge defense system, and that was sort of like on his path to redemption. Basically, it was like them testing this out. Of course, it went horribly wrong, but it wasn't Richard Daystrom's fault. It was the evil gaseous alien,
Yeah.
or magnetic creature, or whatever they called him. So yeah, so that's I felt like that, like he had to have, because they would not have called the Daystrom Institute the Daystrom Institute if it was something that he didn't kind of recover.
Yeah. And that's a very like Star Trek thing of like in the
Yeah.
future, like, yeah, people recover from stuff like that. So
Yeah.
But and that's all we got on the Peanut Hamper and Agamus stuff. I guess let's talk about like our big ending with Badgey
Yes.
going. So is he trying to recreate Tom Paris's like Warp 10 flight? Remember in Threshold when Paris is like, "Oh, we can be like everywhere in the galaxy all at the same
Right.
time. I'm back
But
in,
he's going
in the Alpha
9.9.
Quadrant. I'm with the Klingons. I'm everything." So yeah, so why does he think he'll be like everywhere?
I don't know. That was my question. Like, we've had ships go 9.9, like, well, Voyager does even, I think, at one point. So warp 9.9 is not warp 10. There's a difference, but maybe it's close enough that it was enough to have maybe energy goes there, not matter. I don't know. This was a really cool scene though. I loved when he comes out of the galaxy. It's just like it's terrifying. It's sort of that eldritch horror sort of feel to it.
It really is. But yeah, they built him up as like this big, larger than life, over the top threat, and now you're gonna see him become like ultimate level god power, able to just wipe out the whole Federation. The thought of like Badgey having control over every ship, every computer, like what is he saying? I'm in every pad, every comm badge, everything. It really is
LCARs,
terrifying. Yeah, he's in the LCARs. No, not our sweet innocent LCARs created by Mike Okuda in the 80s that we've cherished for decades. Not anything but the LCARs.
Something that was never meant to be functional, and then when they had a video game, it had to be functional. That was fun. I worked on the console version of Star Trek Online, so it's like I talked to Mike at that point. I was just like, thanks so much for this. He's like, hey, I didn't make it for a game. It's like, it was not my intention. It's just supposed to look cool.
I was just trying to get something that would look good on a standard definition TV
Yeah.
screen in 1987 was all I was
Yeah.
worried about.
Exactly. It did kind of work. It was just funny. It was like,
Maybe try to slip in some Buckaroo Banzai in jokes in there here and there, but other than that,
that's true. Doctor Who and the what is it? The Gilligan's Island, that was also in there.
So what do you think when Badgey, I guess, had his epiphany, when he saw all of space and time laid out before him?
Yeah, I mean, it was his reaction makes sense for what, like, I feel like he's smart enough to have like, oh wait, this is stupid to be that malicious, and the fact that there are all these other opportunities, but just the fact that this happened is kind of weird. I mean, I guess it's Lower Decks. It's going to be weird, but it was just sort of I don't know. I'm sort of indifferent to it.
I mean, a lot of it's like kind of cool and kind of trippy. It's just kind of like visually exciting.
Visually,
I really
it's super trippy, and I like the visually. I loved it.
I love Chris Westlake's music is like really powerful, and it's like a fun sequence to watch. But it's so much happens so quickly. And I like even like the whole like ascension to the Great Koala and all that stuff. They were using like a lot of animation and stuff that they had come up with before. It was even the dialogue, just like I can see all of time, the beginning of time, the end of time. It's like, yeah, it's like in every movie, every show, whenever like a character like gets like that enlightenment or whatever, like they always say that. They always say, I can see the beginning of time and the end of time. And it's supposed to be like profound. You can see like the beginning and end, but it's like, no, like this happens with like every fictional character that evolves
and I think that's
to this
how they
level.
could cram so much story into this, because it is such a known quantity that they didn't have to like spell out a lot of this stuff. They could just do it, and
Yeah, it's
people
kind of paint by
get the
numbers.
gist.
Yeah, it's like it's the
So
same thing
it
as
worked for that
bad.
instant.
Like
I
with
think it would've-
Agamus and Boimler in the interrogation room, it's like, okay, like we've seen this before. We know what's going to
Yeah.
happen next. So
It would have been kind of interesting if like you didn't exactly know what happened and he just sort of disappears, and like, like, will I be back? Who knows? Like almost like Q in the first season of Next Gen.
But I feel like the show, I guess, realized, okay, we have these 3 evil AIs, and we've left them all kind of dangling plot threads that we can go back to. People are going to expect us to go back to them eventually. We should probably we need to resolve these things at some point. So I feel like they were kind of trying to rapidly resolve all of that stuff and make sure that it doesn't interfere with whatever their season 4 big plot with the mysterious ship going around doing whatever it's doing. They wanted to make sure that all these, that Agamus, Badgey, Peanut Hamper were all kind of either resolved or moved away from that, to where like, okay, the audience knows there's something else going on with them, and the audience isn't going to be worried about them. They can now focus on whatever enemy, antagonist, whatever we're doing instead, I suppose. But it just felt like so much so quick. I almost think this probably should have been 2 separate episodes. Like, give us like a whole episode on the Badgey stuff and a whole episode on the Peanut Hamper and Agamus stuff. Even though like they're all 3 AIs, they really don't have much in common other than they learn to be good eventually.
Right. Yeah, I could see it as 2 different episodes. Although I don't know if there is enough for 2 separate episodes in that case. Then maybe an episode and a half. I don't know.
Yeah. Or it didn't all have to be in the same season. They could have, I guess, split some of this. But I don't know. It was a lot of convenient stuff happened very quickly. I guess Badgey does make the comment about like all life is connected, synthetic and organic. So I guess, I don't know, like all life is sacred, all different types of life, infinite diversity, and all different life. I mean, I guess it's all Star Trek. It's all there. But there's not much new. It's not really saying anything new.
No,
and
I would agree with that. It would be nice if this had, well, I guess it did move the larger plot along, but just a very tiny bit. Yeah, it would be nice if it tied into something else. But sometimes you have those episodes. They're just fun for what they are.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on like all the character stuff. That like I liked all that stuff too, and I like where Peanut Hamper and Agamus and Badgey all end up. I guess you think it's the Badgey stuff, I guess, is the one that seems too convenient to me, but I can live with it. Like Cisco, I can live with it. I liked Agabus telling Tyrannochilus, I believe was the name.
Yes,
When
Tyrannochilus. Yeah,
Tyrannochilus is like, "Will you be able to rehabilitate me too?" And I loved Agabus's response, like, "I don't know, Tyrannochilus, but I can try."
yeah.
Which is like it's so stupid, but so sincere and so earnest and heartfelt, all at the same time. It's all three of those, and
I also
love
love
it.
that his laugh, no matter what, always sounds evil.
Always sounds evil, yeah. And I like they don't explain that. No, at no point does someone say like, "Does your laugh always sound evil?"
Yeah, but I appreciate
Yes,
that.
yeah. Like, yes, I do too. It's like, yeah, they avoided doing that, and I feel like a lesser
They know that
show
we're
would've-
smart enough to understand that that's part of the joke.
Yeah, they don't have to explain. They don't have to spoon feed the jokes to the audience.
Yeah.
The Star Trek audience. They might not always be smart, but they always think they're smart. That's the thing about Trekkies. They're not always smart, but they always think they are.
There's
So
a
we're still
really
the best
funny
fandom
Stargate
ever.
episode where they were showing, it was I think episode 200, where it was a Stargate movie, or a knockoff of Stargate. And it's like, oh, the audience won't know the difference. It's like, the audience is normally a sensitive, smart, intelligent bunch. Like, basically they're talking to the people watching Stargate, which I thought was kind of funny. So yeah, this is the funny thing is, I know how this is done in Photoshop, this effect. This was weird. It's like the only time I've ever seen, like, oh, it's that filter. It's the thing that you run through to try to make something look like a comic book, but it never does.
Oh, that thing. Yeah, it always makes things look shitty.
It looks like this.
Yeah,
it literally it's this. So yeah, I thought that's where my brain eventually went. I was like, oh wait, I'm a graphic designer, so I see that. But yes.
the filter that's like, that's a great picture. Would you like it to look like dog shit? Because we got a filter for that.
Yeah. Which is that's exactly what they were trying to do in that. Like, it's this weird compressed sort of not great.
Yeah, just
picture.
the Agamus drone got like a bad scan. This is the best we got.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works. Coded for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is that we can get the grappler maybe, hopefully, eventually a bit more accurate, because now we have Badgey on board. So
this should not be like that. That part is that's the least believable thing in the entire show. Honestly, it's like, come on, how can these people not have aim it at something and shoot it? Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, they should be able to figure that.
They can go lights or faster than light. It's like they can do that.
Rutherford, you figured out how to code an artificial intelligence god. I think you can figure out how to handle this grappler.
Yeah,
that people were able to use just fine 200 years earlier.
Oh, I don't know if we did mention the one thing when Badgey, or it is Badgey, says that he can detonate every warp core. I'm just like, oh no, because as a joke, when we were reviewing Discovery, we said that possibly, like, maybe Badgey caused the burn. It's like, oh, he could have. It would have made as much sense as what actually caused it.
I mean, I don't dislike what they did with that reveal as much as you do, but I do dislike it. And I'll have to say, like, having it be caused by Badgey at some point after this episode would actually make more sense.
That would have been interesting. Weird, but interesting.
Yeah, it still would have been very weird. Not saying it would have been good, it just would have been better.
Yeah.
But I do like having Badgey as a recurring character on the show. I assume that's going to be the thing. Like any episode, Badgey could show up. He'll just be around to help out. I like that. I think that's cool.
I love at the end when he does the rebooting thing, and they think he's bad for like a moment, and there's a really long pause on everybody just staring straight, and then Tendy's like, yeah, so I'm gonna leave. And she just like turns around.
My hope is that that's not a recurring thing. I want Badgey to just be good. I'm like Rutherford, like, no, Badgey's good.
But I just love the reaction. I thought that was great, especially the amount of time they let the pause go was perfect.
It was funny. Yeah, it was good. It was well edited. It was a good moment. Good. It hit right. I don't know what we're gonna get next week, but I think they're gonna leave the mysterious threat alone and deal with it in the last two, and I think we'll get like a two-parter finale.
Which makes sense because the screeners, we don't have the last two.
Yeah, they're holding on to the last two, so I think they'll be connected. Could be wrong, but we'll find out soon.
Yep.
So I don't think I have any other. I have one last thought in my notes. I like that Goodgie is not going to call Rutherford father, because that would have been. It just would have been awkward to hear that in dialogue all the time. So I like when he just says, "You can call me Rutherford," but the relationship is still there. It's kind of like they still care about each other. Rutherford, he learned his lesson. He's not going to abandon this child like he did his last one. So my hope is that Goodgie will just pop up in many episodes and have a lot of cool contributions to the crew, to the ship, to the stories, to the jokes, whatever. I like having Goodgie on the ship.
It'll be it's sort of like, you think Tendi is like really well intentioned and super chipper. It's like this Goodgie can out Tendi.
I want to see the two of them go play on the holodeck and stuff.
Let's
have fun with that. Let's have fun with Goodgie. Yeah, let's go build sand castles with Goodgie.
That would be fun.
But any other final thoughts?
Wait, they weren't on the holodeck, so somehow they've figured out how to get Badgey off the holodeck as well.
Oh yeah, they must have a holo projector down there in their little cargo bay, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying.
No, I was just asking if you had any final thoughts.
Oh no, I think I've said what I need to say. I can't think of anything more right now. As soon as we end the stream, I'll come up with like 3 really brilliant comments or something that I could have made, but.
We can keep the conversation going in Discord or Star Trek socials or wherever.
Twitter.
But, in the meantime, we can go on to the Gorn Egg section of the show, where we like to talk about the in-jokes, Easter eggs, and continuity connections that we thought were worth mentioning. Sometimes I list those things in different orders. I think it's normally Easter eggs, in-jokes, and continuity connections, but today it was in-jokes, Easter eggs, continuity connection. So next week it might be continuity connection.
And I did not get a video out this week. I apologize. Also, it was like didn't feel like it was a giant Easter egg or anything in there either. So
yeah, we just work with what the episode gives us. So, but as for the title of this episode, A Few Badgeys More, that is a reference to, or I assume it's a reference to the Clint Eastwood Western For a Few Dollars More. The cool thing with this is that there is the Next Generation episode titled Fistful of Datas, when we had multiple datas. So that was a play on Fistful of Dollars, the Clint Eastwood movie, and then the sequel to that, For a Few Dollars More, gets spoofed with A Few Badgeys More. So it kind of had a Star Trek connection already. The Binar return in this episode very prominently. I was thrilled to see them. They had a mention in Star Trek Enterprise. But other than that, like, we had not seen hide nor hair of the Binar since TNG season 1, way back in like the Reagan years. So it's been a hot minute.
That's a long time. I threw their the audio into Audition and tried to figure out if there was a way to, like, okay, what if they're actually saying something? If they are, I don't know how they cut it up and did it. So it's like, I have a feeling it's just like multiple audio clips just sort of layered on top of each other or right after each other. So yeah, I couldn't make it work.
more than likely gobbledygook, but if there's a secret meaning in there, someone let us know. Of course, the grappler I mentioned, first seen in Star Trek Enterprise, but got a huge I don't know about huge, but got a fun shout out on Strange New Worlds earlier this year. The Tendi and Sand thing. So they mentioned in the first episode of the show, way back in 2020, that she had not really been around sand much. They don't have sand on Orion. That always seemed weird to me, because I was like, you went to college in San Francisco. That's on a beach.
Oh, like, well, that's true.
So I was like, it's on the coast. So like, you should have seen sand all the time.
Maybe she didn't get out much. I don't know, but
she didn't. Because when she made the dog, she said like, "Oh, I didn't see any Earth dogs. I was always focused on my studies and stuff."
Oh, right. So maybe she didn't see them.
It does make sense eventually if you keep watching the show. It made sense eventually. But she was also she also had a hard time with sand in season 1, episode 4, Moist Vessels. She messed up the sand mandala for O'Connor. When O'Connor was preparing to ascend. So Tindy's relationship with sand is an interesting recurring thing in the show. So the neurazine gas, Aaron,
Yes.
that they mention neurazine gas, which does, like you said, it incapacitates humans,
Mm-hmm.
but doesn't kill them. But there's two different gases there's neurazine that incapacitates, and then there's neurocene, which was mentioned in DS9.
Oh,
Which
right.
that one is lethal.
Yeah, that was a deadly gas.
But it sounds like in the episode that Badgey says neurazine.
Yeah.
So
wait, did we ever look at the subtitles? I didn't even.
The subtitles say neurazine.
Okay, well then it's
So
that's just a weird mistake, or maybe
I
will kill you if they if you don't have any oxygen, if it's just pumped full of neurazine completely.
But this is a great example, and what I like for us fans to do, where if we see something that might not make sense in Star Trek, it's not a big deal. Like, we're creative people, we can come up with a headcanon explanation. As Stan Lee would have called it a no prize when people would write into Marvel Comics and be like, I fixed this continuity error that wasn't even a concern to anyone, but congratulations, kid, you won the no prize. Well, but yeah, here it's like, okay, well, we have clearly the writers probably meant neurocene, but they accidentally wrote neurazine. That's easily forgiven. We can just say that, oh, well, sometimes neurazine incapacitates, but sometimes it kills you, which makes sense if you know anything about like biology and chemistry.
Right, like, well, anything, take too much aspirin or whatever. It's like
oxygen. You can die of oxygen poisoning. Yeah. Yep. So. All good there. And then, yes, the Tyrus 7A research station was recreated from the Next Generation episode Quality of Life.
With the Tucker tubes.
Now we know that those things are called Tucker tubes. And then the really fun, I guess, like, display of all these locations where Lower Decks has gone before, but we get that montage when Badgey is kind of taking over the galaxy. We see the subspace relay that we saw in season 3. We get to see Douglas Station. We get to see Station 25. We get to see Deep Space Nine. And you get to see Talin's old Vulcan ship, the Cheval, with her captain. What was his name? Sokol.
Yeah, the idiot, according to Mariner.
But the really fun one for me was seeing the USS Vancouver, and I was surprised like no one else seemed to care.
I know.
But
no one's
Boimler's X. Lieutenant Barbara Brinson is back in a blink if you miss it cameo.
Is the guy next to her like? Or like he looks, the way he's looking at her is very odd. Sort of like
that is a strange reaction.
Yeah.
Sometimes I freeze frame on like odd reactions on characters. That could be too. That it's just a bad face like that. But yeah, you see her in like I think it's the Astrometrics lab. It's a room that we see in Cupid's Aaron Arrow way back in season 1. They're in this room. So. But yeah, I don't know. I always liked her. I thought she was neat. So happy to see her again.
That was cool.
And then of course, Badgey's ascension looked very similar to O'Connor's ascension. So the show really does use a lot of its own history. So they started doing that a lot in season 3, doing it just as much in season 4. I love seeing it. I kind of do think we might get an explanation on the koala at some point, though. Like, I don't want like a ton, but I just kind of want like an acknowledgement of like.
I don't want the koala to be the person doing the big season arc either.
No, I guess it could be the koalas in that shit, but I don't want the koala to be like actively involved in the
anything
the story of it. Yeah, I just kind of like would if they just kind of somehow infer that like, oh yeah, there's like this weird cosmic entity that, for some reason it had its eye on the Cerritos for a little bit during these years. Just I don't need like, I want it to be a crazy mysterious thing. I want it to be something like, oh, it's so grand and beyond my mere feeble human understanding. I wouldn't be able to wrap my head around it anyways, even if you did explain it to me. But give me something. Just give me a hint of something. And you said you had something that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I have two things. One, there was and I think this is a reference when Peanut Hamper says, "Is like we'll rendezvous in Martinique," and I think that's a reference to Have and Have Not, which is a Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall movie where they're these two lovers who are trapped in the middle of World War II, and they meet up in Martinique. So I'm thinking that maybe that's which is an island like off of
Martinique. Okay.
I think that's what she said. I have to go back and check.
She says Montanita, which is there. Yeah, and there's a Montanita in Ecuador, which is where they were hanging out on the beach.
Oh, so well, then I misheard. Never mind. That is completely not a thing then. And the one thing that people think is a thing, or at least Jorg does, I don't think is. There, and being the TAS guy, I was the first person to notice this and just jumped past it because it didn't seem like it. But there's in one of our planets is missing. You can see on the screen when they're trying to show them pictures of Earth and what humans are like. There's silhouettes of Lassie and the Rescue Rangers running, which is actually kind of funny because it was on ABC at the time, wasn't even on the same network. So like they and Jorg said like, oh, it's a deep cut reference to that, and I don't think it is. I think it just happens to be Lassie or a dog movie, and it's like it could be. If somebody like wants to abuse me of that assumption, great.
I mean,
which would be fantastic.
You do mention the Lassie Rescue Rangers thing in your book, and we know that that book is in the Lower Decks writers' room.
That's true. Yeah, that's possible.
So that is possible. But I think more than likely they just knew about Lassie as a like huge pop cultural thing in the 20th century, and we're probably just thinking of that. But
Jill says Jorg probably doesn't know how prevalent Lassie was, like being from a different country. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's that's hell. That to him, that's probably Lassie only comes up, when it is referenced in Star Trek, but
or something. Yeah.
Okay.
But so those were my two. Which turned out to be both none in reality.
Well, y'all heard me and Aaron talk about this episode for over an hour, and we'd love to hear what y'all have to say about it. So if you have thoughts, please let us know. You can reply to my tweets on Twitter. You can tell us how you feel in the Tex-Trek Discord server or on the Tex-Trek Facebook page. We do love to share reactions we receive from people. We got some subspace transmissions from last week's episode, Parth Ferengi's Heart Place, the romantic trip to Ferenginar episode. So I can share some of those with y'all.
Okay.
Pull them up real quick. And on Twitter, Jill47 said, Maglimo is not up to the job of helping Mariner figure out what is holding her back. That's something we were talking about, Aaron. Yeah, Maglimo does not seem to be capable of doing his job. Also on Twitter, Wayne Votto said, good episode, but least favorite so far of the season. So,
oh, wow.
Wayne, I'd be curious to know how this week's episode fell in your ranking. On YouTube, at Rorschach1 said, the naming of this episode is Chef's Kiss. So I'm assuming that Rorschach1 is in the UK and was aware of that weird Garth Dark Place, whatever. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place show that I think
it played on Sci-Fi Channel as well.
Yeah, you had mentioned that it looked kind of familiar to you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But it was one of those things that it wasn't big in my pop culture background.
Yeah. I watched a lot of sci-fi like when it was like sci-fi, like spelled like SC
correctly.
I-FY. When they made it Skiffy or whatever, like that's when I stopped watching.
Skiffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, SYFY. I actually saw the very first like day of Sci-Fi Channel when it premiered, which was interesting. Somewhere I have a tape of that.
What year was that? Like
1990?
89 or 90?
Let's see. I think, hang on. Let's see. I will find out.
Okay. Well, while Aaron is looking that up, I got another
1992.
92? Okay, so a little later.
September 24th. Yep.
Yeah, the first thing I ever watched on Sci-Fi Channel, it was right around there. It was like 92 or 93 then. It was an episode of The Incredible Hulk from the 70s.
Oh, that's cool.
It was the first time I'd ever seen an episode of that show, and I was like, "Oh my god, they made like a whole show about like this comic book character. That is so cool."
I think the thing that I really liked in the beginning is they had these little fake news interludes. So there was this ongoing story that was sort of woven throughout every show, and it was like there was it was the AI uprising, and there were
There's
like the president and yeah,
aliens. The aliens were or like people were being replaced by aliens or something.
oh, yeah,
They
President Clark. I remember that. So there's like, and then they had like the whole, I probably corresponded with the actual election in America. So I think they were doing stuff like that. But yeah, I missed that.
Also on YouTube, Fernando Cesarano, or I'm sorry, Ferdinand Cesarano says, "Don't forget how great Adam West is as a voice actor on Family Guy. His performances on that show are extremely energetic." So yes, thank you, Ferdinand, for pointing that out.
What's in that reference to?
I was talking about Adam West not being as good of a Batman when he was a voice acting Batman as when he was physically playing Batman.
Right.
Ferdinand, it's nice to hear from you. And I like it when you point out the things I overlook, like Adam West voice acting and the work he was doing on Family Guy. And then also on YouTube, from Opinions No One Cares About, who says, here we got some more advocacy for hashtag Team Tenderford, because Opinions No One Cares About says, "My kid could see the chemistry between hashtag Tenderford after watching for 5 minutes. And he doesn't watch Lower Decks very often, so even the kid knows. Smart kid." Yeah, I'd like to see. I think they're saving that for the end. I think that's why like Mike McMahon is like, "Hey, Paramount Plus, I need to know. Are you going to buy like season 6 and 7, or does it need to end in 5?" I think he's asking because he's like, "I need to know when to put I need to put like the Rutherford Tindy kiss. That's going to be like the big climactic ending of the show. Like, is that a season 5 thing or
like
season
Ross
7
and Rachel? They'll be at a starport waiting to go to.
You know what?
Some other...
Friends is another show that was on TV a lot, and I never watched it on purpose, but I watched a lot of Friends because it's just always on. It was just on a lot. Yeah. But when they got into syndication, it was on all the time.
I watched like the first 2 seasons in real time, and then it was just like, oh, all of these are exactly the same. It's just like it's a kind of comfort show, but it's like there wasn't really anything. It was just will they, won't they? Went back and forth forever, and but yeah. It was fun.
Well, I think that we'll have a good time next week. I don't know what the episode will be, but I think they'll probably focus on something smaller and a bit more lighthearted, and then get back to some big serious stuff for the final 2 of the season. But whatever happens, I'm looking forward to watching how it plays out. Please come back and hang out with us and talk Star Trek with us. There will be a live stream tomorrow night at 7 p.m. I don't know who's going to be on there. Aaron's feeling a little under the weather, so we appreciate him hanging out with us tonight, and hopefully he feels better tomorrow.
I just got like jabbed with needles. It's more of that. But sometimes it knocks me out, and sometimes it doesn't. I'm just kind of like in between this time.
But if you're listening to this later, please go check out on YouTube. Go check out our stream on whatever crazy news got announced, whatever clips or trailers or whatever happened at New York Comic Con. Like, oh, that Lower Deck stuff, that Prodigy stuff, oh, that Strange New Worlds and Discovery and whatever. Yeah, like go watch our YouTube stream talking about it. And
what could we make up that would be?
Yeah. A big thank you to the Tex-Trek Patreons that make this show possible. And again, we'll be having our watch party tomorrow night. We do one of those every month. You can come in as little as $2 a month to get into the watch parties.
And they're fun.
Thank you. Big huge thank you to Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Earl Grey Trekkie, Quarks Bar, Benjinium, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, and our anonymous supporters. Thank each and every one of you. There's the Thursday streams with Rachel and the gang, and make sure that if you're watching on YouTube or if you're subscribed to the Tex-Trek podcast on one of the podcast platforms, make sure that you're also subscribed to Drawn to Trek, because Lower Decks is gonna run its course eventually. We'll get to the big season finale in a few weeks, and I'm sure we'll have fun talking about it. But there's other animated Star Trek stuff. We got Prodigy stuff happening. We got who knows what else is in the works. I know Aaron's talking about there's still some 50th anniversary TAS stuff.
We're gonna do some TAS revisitation. Just kind of button that up a little bit, and I'm excited to do that too. It's also not like you don't have to try and beat somebody out with the news about it, and you don't have to be like, oh, okay, spoiler, because it's 50 years old.
Yeah, and I love talking about legacy Star Trek. I love talking about new Star Trek. So I like having all those conversations going, because we got to have something to talk about. With we have to have some excuse to get together and hang out when there's no new Star Trek coming out. So, but thanks everyone who's listening to us, who's watching us.
Thank you.
The season of Lower Decks has been a good bit of fun. I'm curious how this season's gonna wrap up. So I don't know. I was feeling good about season 4. I'm a little, I wouldn't say nervous, even if they drop the ball with their conclusion for the big mysterious ship ending. I think I'll still be okay with this season overall. But I don't know. This could potentially become my favorite season of the show, or maybe it won't. It's just going to depend on how they wrap that stuff up.
Something I've heard from a couple people is that it feels very safe. It's almost like they got too much pushback on the orgy scene or something, and then just kind of just went a little bit more middle of the road. It's good, but not pushing any boundaries at this point. So
yeah,
we will see.
We'll see what happens, but we'll be back talking about it next week. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.